Philippe and Driss are driving in a fancy car. Driss gets Philippe to smile. They speed and bet that the police won't be able to catch them. When they're caught, Driss bets he can get an escort. He gets out and says he can explain. The police are harsh until they realize that Philippe needs a wheelchair. Driss tells them they're headed to the hospital. Philippe pretends to have a fit. The police apologize and escort them. Time flashes back. Philippe and his assistant, Magali, are interviewing someone to be his caregiver. Philippe doesn't like any of them, as they treat him like a project, not a person. Driss is tired of waiting and cuts in front of someone else. He gives Magali a page to sign. She asks about his references, and he jokingly refers to music groups. Philippe makes a joke, and Driss says humor is like music to Philippe. He sucks at both. Driss explains that he needs the signatures to say he applied for the job. 3 refusals let him keep getting benefits. Philippe says he can't sign it now. Driss asks why not. Philippe shows that he's paralyzed. Driss agrees to fetch his paper the next day and tells Philippe he doesn't have to get up to see him out. Driss goes home. The apartment is filled with kids. It's cramped and crazy. He sees his brother, Adama, get dropped off by a drug dealer and seems disappointed. He waits for his mother and gives her a Fabergé egg he stole from Philippe. She's upset with him for disappearing for 6 months. She has other children to care for and tells him to pack up and get out. Driss sits with his friends all night and travels by train to Philippe's home the following day. He's led through Philippe's mansion by Yvonne, the housekeeper. She tells him that Philippe had a lousy night and discusses his schedule. He asks her to hurry up, but she is instructed to show him around. He's taken to a large room with a separate bathroom and told this is where he'll live. Philippe tells Driss he's hired as a caregiver for a month's trial period. Driss moves in and enjoys having so much space to himself. He's shown how to care for Philippe. It doesn't go well and he makes many mistakes. Elisa, Philippe's daughter, takes a boy up to the rooftop to make out. Driss is there and tells them to go away. Driss is sloppy as he takes care of Philippe. He figures out Philippe can't feel anything and plays around by putting hot water on his legs to see if there's a reaction. Driss helps Philippe go through his mail and keeps forgetting he's paralyzed. He takes a bath with headphones on and doesn't hear Philippe calling for him on the baby monitor. Yvonne comes into his room to look for him. She goes through his backpack and finds a pocket knife. Driss refuses to put Philippe in the wheelchair van and suggests they drive one of Philippe's expensive cars. As they leave, a neighbor is parked in front of the driveway. Driss pulls the neighbor out of the car and makes him read the sign saying, "No parking." Philippe is pleased with Driss. Yvonne is not. They go to a museum. Philippe stares at the same painting for an hour. Driss wants to leave and calls Philippe crazy for wanting to buy a red splash on white for 30,000 euros. Philippe teaches Driss a few things about art, but he calls it nonsense. Philippe asks for some chocolate, and Driss says he can't have chocolate if he has no hands. Philippe is shocked, but realizes it's a joke and laughs. He meets a friend, Antoine, at a fancy restaurant while Driss waits outside. Antoine asks who Driss is. He was told Driss is reckless and can't believe Philippe has allowed someone like that into his home. He passes on information about Driss being in prison for 6 months for robbery. He warns that these street guys have no pity. Philippe says he wants someone with no pity who treats him like everyone else. He agrees that Driss is not as sensitive as he could be, but he's strong and does what Philippe asks. Philippe tells Magali what to write for a love letter to Eleanor. Yvonne sits with Driss and speaks about how Philippe and Eleanor have never met face to face. Driss asks if Yvonne is in a relationship with Albert, the gardener. She denies it, and he points out how Albert lovingly looks at her. Driss is sleeping, but wakes up to the sound of Philippe. He's breathing fast and is burning up, so Driss gets a cold cloth and talks Philippe through it. He's soothed and can relax and breathe normally. He asks Driss to take him out for air. They go for a walk along the pier. It's 4 a.m., and Philippe can't remember the last time he's been out so late. He explains that even though he can't feel anything, he gets false pain from his body. They speak about romance, and Driss wonders how Philippe would manage with a woman. He says you adapt and find pleasure elsewhere, like the ears. They smoke weed. And sit at a cafe. Driss makes Philippe laugh. He talks about his wife, Alice. She died of an illness that money couldn't protect her from. He was grieving and decided to go paragliding. He was raised to think he could do whatever he wanted, including paragliding in bad weather. He crashed and became paralyzed. Philippe can live to old age with the help of doctors, but the real handicap isn't being in a wheelchair. It's living without Alice. Philippe realizes the trial period is over and congratulates Driss on getting the job. He says Driss can start his job by giving back the Fabergé egg he stole. Alice gave him one for each year of marriage. Driss denies taking anything. Driss picks up his younger sister, Mina, from school. Adama was arrested, so she called Driss. They agree not to tell their mother. Adama doesn't care that he was arrested with drugs and says it was such a small amount that he wouldn't go to prison. He refuses to get in the wheelchair van with Driss. They argue and he walks away. Philippe is writing another letter to Eleanor. Driss says it's boring and asks what she looks like. He's shocked that Philippe doesn't know, even though they've been writing to each other for 6 months. He finds Eleanor's number in one of her letters and calls her against Philippe's wishes. She answers, and he brings the phone to Philippe, who's forced to speak to her. Philippe has long calls with Eleanor and even speaks to her at the opera. Philippe wants to charm her with more than his bank account. Driss is convinced she won't care about Philippe being in a wheelchair. They watch the opera and Driss makes comments. The two of them end up laughing together. Eleanor wants a photograph of Philippe, so Driss finds one of him before the accident. He must choose between that and a picture of him in his wheelchair. He decides to go with the one before the accident and asks Yvonne to throw the other away. Elisa is rude to Driss as she asks for a cigarette. He has to force her out of his room because she refuses to leave. Driss is angry about Elisa and wants Philippe to put her right. He asks Yvonne for backup, and Philippe is surprised she supports Driss. She thinks Elisa could use some straightening out. She treats the people who work for Philippe like dogs. Philippe is strict with Elisa and insists she treats the people around him with respect. She's upset, but he continues. Driss is getting better at his job. Philippe takes him shopping, and he takes Philippe out into the snow. Driss paints something and asks for their opinions. They're surprised at how good it is.
Well.
Driss has Philippe's wheelchair altered so it goes faster. He hires a masseuse to massage Philippe's ears. They're out shopping when Yvonne calls. He pretends he's alone and tells Philippe his surprise birthday party is being pushed back. Philippe says they have a surprise party every year, and Yvonne always stresses about it. A private orchestra plays at Philippe's birthday. He enjoys the music. Driss finds Elisa crying in her room. She took pills from Yvonne's bag and swallowed them because she was upset her boyfriend broke up with her. Driss realizes she took medication for diarrhea and teases her by asking if she needs an ambulance. She wants to pay Driss to talk to her boyfriend, but he laughs and walks out. Philippe shows Driss's painting to Antoine, who likes it, but thinks 11,000 euros is a bit much for an unknown artist. Philippe tries introducing Driss to classical music, but he either makes fun of the music or only recognizes the songs from adverts. They smoke weed and laugh. Driss plays Earth, Wind and Fire. The leftover guests join him in dancing and have a good time. He puts Philippe to bed and gives him a gift, a picture of Eleanor. She'll be in Paris next week and wants to meet Philippe. Yvonne and Driss get him ready for the date. Driss talks to Elisa's boyfriend. He instructs the boy to apologize and bring her a croissant every day. Yvonne and Philippe sit in the restaurant, waiting for Eleanor. He's nervous. Driss parks outside a fancy business building and watches his mother clean the windows. He waits for her to leave, but doesn't speak to her. Philippe is upset Eleanor is a few minutes late and wants to leave. Eleanor arrives at the restaurant as he goes, and they miss each other by a few seconds. Philippe takes Driss on a private plane and gives him the 11,000 euros Antoine paid for his painting. He encourages him to keep on with his art. Driss is nervous on the plane, and Philippe teases him. They drive up to the mountains and watch paragliders. Philippe has Driss go paragliding with him. Driss hates the experience, and Philippe enjoys feeling alive. Adama is waiting for Driss when they get back home. He's injured and lies about it. Driss is angry and calls Mina. A drug dealer is threatening to kill Adama. He reassures Mina and asks her to keep it from their mother. Philippe hears the conversation. Driss sits with him and explains that his mother is really his aunt. She and her husband adopted him from her brother in Senegal because they had no children. They ended up having kids of their own, and his uncle died. Philippe says Driss needs to straighten Adama out. He can't take care of Philippe for the rest of his life. Driss packs and says a fond goodbye to Yvonne. She gives him the picture of Philippe in a wheelchair and asks him to throw it away. Philippe watches as Driss leaves. Someone is parked outside the gate, and he politely asks the man to move. They wait for their mother at the train station and carry her bags. Philippe's new caregiver is boring. Yvonne suggests she cancels her date with Albert, but Philippe won't let her. Driss listens to lively classical music. He meets with his friends again and speaks to the drug dealer about leaving Adama alone. He looks for another job and is charming as he talks about art and music. Philippe hates his new caregiver. He wakes up hyperventilating and refuses to let anyone in to help him. Driss meets Yvonne at the house. She called him because Philippe wasn't doing well. Driss sees Philippe and teases him about the beard. They go for a drive. It's back to the night of the car chase. The police escort them to the hospital, and Driss waits for them to leave before driving away. They head to the coast. Philippe is pleased. Driss shaves off his beard and they go to a fancy restaurant. He's not staying for lunch as Philippe will have other company. He gives back the Fabergé egg before walking out. Philippe is confused until Eleanor sits down. Philippe is happy and smiles at Driss, who walks past the window.